Hey, I'm Johnny Stanton, fullback for the Cleveland Browns, and I'm plugged in with Jay.
Yo, what's good? It's your homeboy T-Pain. Right now, at this very exact moment, you plugged in with Jay.
Plugged in with Jay right now. This is Jay O'Nash.
Turn up, turn up, turn up.
My boy Jay Perry.
You're listening to my boy, Jay the Plug.
My boy, Jay the Plug.
You're listening to my boy, Jay the Plug.
You're listening to my boy, Jay the Plug.
You're listening to my boy, Jay the Plug.
Jay the Plug.
You got many winners from anyone. You're listening to my boy, Jay the Plug.
Get plugged up, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Plugged In with Jay. I, of course, am your host, Jay the Plug, here with a fullback, probably one of my favorite positions in the NFL and football, Johnny Stanton of the Cleveland Browns. Johnny, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, man.
Absolutely, bud. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. I apologize with all the rescheduling and stuff like that. I know that we had going on, but we got it together, so here we go, all right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we got to make it work.
All right. Yeah, me too. Okay. So starting off, All-American quarterback in high school.
Not quite, but yeah, close. Not All-American, that's for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, Wikipedia has definitely got you as All-American, but I was looking and I've seen, man, you're yoked. I don't see too many quarterbacks your body type, dude. Like you're big. And then I saw you in like some clips in college at UNLV, and I was like, oh my God, dude, you're built for a QB.
Yeah, they didn't use me as a pocket quarterback, that's for sure. I was running the ball, I was scrambling, but I wasn't, the Mariotas, the Lamar Jacksons of the world who are like running around guys. I was, mainly trying to run through them. I got compared to Tebow a lot in high school.
Is that right?
Yeah, just for like the playing style. Yeah.
Yeah. So you run up the ball and you smash people is basically what it is.
Exactly.
I love it, man. So you played for UNLV in college. I heard that you had quite a few visits with some other big name schools. Can you take us through those a little bit?
Yeah. So out of high school, after we won state championship my junior year, I started getting recruited. Mm-hmm. And the school I actually chose out of high school was Nebraska. And my top three were Oregon, Wisconsin, and Nebraska. And I felt the most comfortable over in Lincoln. Mm-hmm. And after a few years, it was obvious to me that I wasn't going to see the field. So I decided to take a bet on myself, go back to the junior college to get back into the mojo of things, like be able to get confident with the ball in my hands again, because I had come off a season-ending ACL surgery my senior year. And finally got to have the ball in my hands, be the everyday starter, and got a lot of confidence back. And then leaving Saddleback College, UNLV was the team that came across my radar, offered me, and I wanted to get somewhere as fast as I could. And UNLV was the school that gave me the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, fantastic, man. It's a good school. Did you have a good time at UNLV? You got any good memories from the football team? Anything being in college?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as football goes, all the guys over there, I'm still, keeping contact with. Some of the best guys that I know are my teammates over there. I know that my senior year, I didn't really get the chance to play quarterback much. Head coach decided to give it to a freshman, Armani Rogers, great guy, great quarterback. And I knew I didn't want to spend the rest of the season on the bench. So I asked if I could play some special teams. My first game at special teams, I ended up having a blocked punt. So it was a pretty cool experience to be able to have like that. I think it's a big reason why I ended up feeling like I was comfortable moving to fullback, was because I know that I can play as a football player and I don't need to be, bound to one position. So if I wanted for my football career to move on past college, I was going to have to switch positions. And that kind of, that just one little moment kind of gave me a spark of confidence to know that I could do, I could be versatile.
Yeah, absolutely. That was going to be my next question. Like what was your journey to becoming a fullback? Like what was the deciding factor?
Well, the decision wasn't mine, actually. When I was coming out, nobody was going to give a quarterback job in the NFL to a guy who played 7 games in total at quarterback in college and didn't light up the world by any means. So I knew I was going to have to work at some other positions. I learned how to long snap. I was working at tight end. Pro day, they also asked me to do some linebacker because I played some linebacker my senior year as well. And Minnesota offered me a chance to try out during the rookie minicamp. You're basically trying to win the job over somebody else who has already been signed to the team. There's no open spots for a tryout to opening for like a tryout player. It's just, you have to beat out somebody else who's there. and they gave me the opportunity, and apparently they thought I was good enough to sign after a couple days at working at tight end. But on the I was about to get on the flight back home from Minnesota, and I look at my phone and get mentioned by the Minnesota Vikings. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. New signing, Johnny Stanton, number 48, fullback. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, it's time to learn a new position. So ever since then, I've been all in on fullback, and I've really, really loved the transition.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, like I was saying before, fullback being one of my favorite positions, but it's fullback, tight end. Y'all can do so many different things. Like I saw that receiving touchdown that you had with the Browns.
Yeah.
What was going through your head whenever you had that first touchdown, man? Like, what were you thinking to do? Like, were you like, oh man, I gotta dance, I gotta do something?
Oh man, I'm sure my teammates are glad I didn't dance. If there's one opportunity to score a touchdown in the NFL, I think every person knows immediately that the first thing you got to do is spike the ball, because they don't let you do that in any other level. So you got to spike the ball, and I spiked it as hard as I could through the ground. Actually, the ball is up there on my shelf.
Is that right?
It's the team does a good job of putting like the image of the touchdown and like some like artwork on it and stuff. It's pretty cool, and you can actually see on the opposite side where they didn't put any paint, there's still like the white skid mark from where I spiked it onto the sideline.
Yeah.
So feels pretty cool. But yeah, being able to do that in the dog pound over in Cleveland, we have that whole side of the field is the dog pound, and be able to do that right in front of the stand, have my family there, have my now fiance there. It was pretty magical. And then on Thursday Night Football, it was crazy.
Yeah, big congratulations to you and your fiance for
Thank
recently
you.
getting engaged. I saw it on Instagram, man. It looks pretty special.
Thank you.
Went
Yeah, it
above
was.
and beyond, huh?
Yeah, no, she was worth it for sure.
Absolutely, man. You're making us all look bad, but so you were saying that you signed with the Vikings, in free agency. Was it 2018?
2018. Yeah, I signed during the offseason.
Now, obviously, tons of talent. You're not the only talented Stanton in the family. Your sister Katie, she's got some talents.
Yeah, she's a singer. Actually, 2020, she started releasing some singles, and right before our season started, she released her first single on iTunes or Apple Music and Spotify and everything. And they were going to come out for one of our, called it like our dress rehearsals, because there's a couple different names for like things we can do before the season, whether it's a mock game or a preseason game, but this was just inter squad, so they called it dress rehearsal. So, and we were allowed to have family there, despite it being 2020. They weren't going to be able to have people come to the game for ticketed game or anything like that, but they let family come. And so I had my mom, my dad, my sister, and Maddie, my fiance, there. And I told Maddie, I says, hey, I was able to reach out to the team DJ, the guy who does the pregame soundtrack during our warm-ups and stuff, and he agreed to play my sister's song. So awesome. During pregame, be ready for once you hear that song start, you got to make sure you start like filming my family. And the thing about that first song is that she like has a really long intro and it's kind of subtle. So when it starts up, like nobody really recognizes it. Katie didn't recognize it. My mom didn't recognize it. Actually, my mom was the first one who did. It's like, Katie, isn't this your song? And my sister said, no, why would they be playing my song? Like, that's dumb. So, and then but once I start hearing it, I'm like looking up to where I know where they are in the stands. I'm like, when are they going to realize? When are they going to realize? And then finally, like the lyrics start and they're like all jumping up and down. I'm like, oh, this is the coolest feeling. So getting to do that, having like, obviously I try to use my platform for a lot of different, for good as best I can and for a lot of different reasons. But being able to use the platform, just be able to have my sister hear her song played within a stadium is one of the more special things that I feel like I've done.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. That's cool. And like you're saying, you like to use your platform for special things. I wanted to bring this up. As you know, like whenever I reach out to talk about, like, see if I can get an interview or anything, I always tell of course, doing an interview, I always love to hook up my guests with custom shoes, things that, cleats. You're pretty involved with My Cause, My Cleats. So have you already picked out a foundation for the 2022 season? I know most of the answers to these, but my viewers and everybody who's watching, they might not know the answer. So could you tell us who you've represented for My Cause, My Cleats so far?
Yeah, so 2020 was my first year actually on a team during the whole season. So quick run through 2018. I was injured the whole year, so I was back home. 2019, I wasn't on a team except for 2 weeks on practice squad with Minnesota. And 2020, I got to be on the practice squad the whole year except for one game. That one game was not my Cleats week. However, I did want to contribute towards the Jesse Reese Foundation here in Orange County, which goes to benefit courageous kids with cancer, and goes to care for them. And they do a great job with their joy jars. You stick, all these jars with like specially chosen toys and send out to kids across the country. So my cleats were designed in that way, where there's a bunch of toys on them, and there's a joy jar on it with the Jesse Reese Foundation logo with Nigu. I'm wearing the bracelet right now. Cool. So it was really cool. I was able to have like a little bit of help on the design for that. And then that ended up going back to the Jesse Reese Foundation. They still have the cleats over there in their office. And those people are family to me. They're awesome. And they loved having the cleats. This next year, they have a lot of, Jesse Reese Foundation actually has a lot of support within the NFL. They have guys like Trey Lance, Patrick Mahomes, all these, especially quarterbacks, wear the Nigu wristband on their wrist. So I felt like, okay, well, Jesse Reese Foundation I love supporting them whenever I can, but they do have a little bit of awareness within the league. So why don't I try to do something that is a little bit more like another organization that I support is the Athlete Ally, which goes to support LGBTQ athletes, and goes to make sure that they get all the support that they need to do to be able to continue to compete. And I thought it'd be cool, especially with Carl Nassib coming out this year and going to support the Trevor Project. I thought it'd be cool to be able to kind of back him up in that and go on to support Athlete Ally with my cleats, and have them go up for auction afterwards. So I reached out to a local, not actually local, but a LGBTQ cleat artist, Judy Wright. And she was not taking commissions. She was not like necessarily open to doing my cause, my cleats artwork, but she jumped at the opportunity. She did a really, really cool job. And I love the way the cleats came out. I gave her complete creative control. Like she can do whatever she wants with it, because I wanted them, her to be able to take advantage of the opportunity. And they went on to make some money for Athlete Ally. And I'm really proud of that. I was able to be one of the first people to support LGBTQ organizations in that way within the NFL. And I still, as much as I can, try to sing their praises because they're doing a lot of good work over there.
Absolutely. That's awesome, man. Athlete Ally, anybody take a look, go check out Athlete Ally. Anybody out there checking this out? Athlete Ally, the Trevor Foundation, all of those are fantastic. We had a long snapper for the Raiders, Trent Sig. He filled me in on the Trevor Foundation, all that. He's told me a lot about that as well.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Okay, so I was telling you before, I started off with fantasy football.
Yes,
I've always been a big fantasy football nut. So that's how everything started for me here. So have you ever played fantasy football?
Yeah, plenty times.
Is that right? Okay.
They have specific rules to be able to do that while you're in the NFL. Like there can only be like a certain amount of money that's on the line. But guys in the league will still do fantasy football all the time.
Oh yeah. We I started up a league called the Pace League with a friend of mine, and it's strictly for charity. And we've got nice. Darren Waller, Trent Sig, Gary Barnage. Man, if you're ever interested in being in the league, you
absolutely.
Invitation. You can.
I'm not very good, but I'll do my best. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna do. This is the first year that. Well, it's our second season, so it's the first time that I've ever really done a best ball league. It just makes it a lot easier for you guys. Like the celebrities that are in the league, like T-Pain and stuff. He could just basically have his players. You can have your players, and then. Have you ever? Best ball is whoever does the best at that position. Those are the points you use. So that
nice.
way. Okay. Be there for the draft and other than that. So yeah, man, absolutely. If you want to be in, I'll definitely get you in that for sure. It'd be a blast. You'll be our official fullback of the Pace League. But you have played with some top running backs in the game. Mm-hmm. You've played with Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb now, Kareem Hunt. If say we were drafting right now, and I know this might be kind of tough, try not to be too political, but if you had to choose, if you had the choice between Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, who would you draft?
It's easy. It's Nick. I mean, first of all, Nick's my teammate, but I think there's actually some discourse that's been happening over like the last week or two about how Nick has always been undervalued as a fantasy running back. how at the beginning of the year they're like, oh, we got Kareem. Like, how can they get, the points to both guys? And every year, both of them end up being like in the top 10, like, barring injury. Even still, with Nick being injured this last year, he was, I think, still like right in the top of points. So you cannot go wrong with Nick or Kareem as your running back. Obviously, Dalvin's incredible, and he's like,
Right.
he's had a battle with injuries as well. But man, if I'm playing fantasy football, Nick is definitely my first choice for running back.
I love it. Y'all heard it. Y'all heard it from him. And if you, man, in the league, if you end up getting him, I know you're going to be blocking like crazy for him too.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely know anybody out there get Nick Chubb. All right. Yeah. So here is something I've actually been very excited about talking to you about, man. I mean, we could talk about Deshaun Watson coming to the team and everything and how dynamic the offense is going to be, and Amari Cooper and everything, which I'm sure you completely agree. But let's dive into something that you love, something that you are a fan of, something that you geek out over. Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
Yeah. Otherwise, AKA D&D.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier we were talking about how so many folks say that fantasy football is Dungeons and Dragons for athletes or people who, but the way I feel is, or that fantasy football is Dungeons and Dragons for nerds. There was a way that they put it. Anyway, we were talking about how nerds, that's not a bad term anymore.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad term.
Everybody's nerdy about something. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Everybody nerds out for, like, me for fantasy football, or me for top hats, or me for these pops, or trophies in fantasy football. Nerd out for those. But how did you get into Dungeons and Dragons? When were you first introduced to it?
So I've been a comic nerd for, I think, ever since I got into college. Loved DC Comics. Obviously the movies are incredible. Got to choose Marvel over DC for the movies, but I was really into comics for several years, and then finally I'm like, I'm going to I'm a regular at these comic book stores, and I always see people like hanging out, having a great time around these tables. I'm like, what are they doing? They're playing these like tabletop role-playing games, and D&D was the most popular, still is the most popular version of that. So one time I'm just like, hey, at the register, like, hey, do you guys play D&D here? And like, yeah, there's a group that just started on Sundays. Why don't you join them? So every other Sunday I started playing D&D, and I got really into it. Started being able to invite some of my own teammates at UNLV to do that with me. Once I joined the league, it was a little bit harder to do it. But then when I got injured, I had all this free time. So I kind of really went into it. And since then, it's become like my favorite hobby. It's my favorite way of expressing my creativity and kind of just having my own, when I zone out, that's kind of what I zone out into. Like, I run the game. I'm the dungeon master. So like, I run the game. I DM for Maddie, her brothers. I've DM for my teammates. And I kind of just zone out and think about like, what's a really cool storyline that could be involved? Like, what show or what movie or story can I like steal from to kind of get these cool ideas to make my players feel like their characters are super cool and badass, and having all these like conflict within their story. There are people who've been doing it for decades and longer who are very accomplished storytellers who are like these renowned DMs. And I'm able, like, I just kind of borrow from their expertise and just try to do whatever I can. But it's been fun to kind of get a little bit of attention as a DM myself, despite the fact that nobody's ever seen me DM besides like 7 people.
That's really interesting. So the storyline that you like, you create the storylines for as a dungeon.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways you can do it. One of the easiest ways to get into it is by running a module, which is a pre-written story, whether it's by Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, who can write these official stories, and there are like 3 or 4 that come out every year. Or and there are some other ones that are third party, these other companies that kind of or just individual freelance authors who create these modules for people to run, where it's a lot easier. They tell you who the characters meet, what they're fighting, what the setting is, what the circumstances, what the situation is, what they're trying to accomplish. Or you can create your whole own story, which is what I've had a lot of fun doing. It's obviously easier to do it the module way. And it has its difficulties as well, but being able to create your own story allows you to really take advantage of the players, their own creativity, and allowing them to create backstories for their own characters and kind of instilling it within your own setting and story.
Man, that's a lot more detailed than I thought it would be. That's
It's-
incredible.
Every session is like writing a episode of TV with however many people are in your group. So if I have 4 people in my group, including me, it's like a little writing room where we're all it's like collaborative storytelling. And actually, like a 5th member of the group is the dice themselves, because they actually determine a lot of what actually happens. So a lot of it's determined by chance.
Okay, that's something I was, and I'll go into it a little bit more as I'm going to go through the things that I kind of realized after I was reading a little bit about D&D. I try to do as much research as I can so I don't sound like a complete idiot. But
You're doing great.
thanks, man. And compare it to fantasy football and how similar it actually is. So you're saying the dice that kind of determines what happens. So if say you have a backstory for a character like I don't know, say like a wizard or something like that, and you've got the story that you've written up. When you're together, is that how you mold everything into what's happening in the game? Like you learn the backstory that way, or do you have notes or like anything that somebody would give you on their character, so you know kind of what they might be best for? And forgive me if I'm
it's good. It's a good question. So a lot of times what I'll try to do is, and a lot of times, I mean, like I've really only DM'd 2 games, and one of them, my teammates didn't have any backstory for their characters. I'm like, okay, I'll just tell the story that I've been planning telling. So I'll kind of have an idea of the story that I want to tell, and kind of like this overarching kind of like what the whole goal is. But I instill the backstory from, Maddie's character who's playing an elven druid. So I'm like, okay, well, it'd be really cool if and she's like, I come from this elven kingdom where I'm the princess, and we live in the trees and everything like that. So I'm like, well, it'd be really cool if at some point we go back to there in the story. It's like different arcs of a TV show, or it's different B plots, or something that kind of interweaves within the main story that you just it allows the story to have more depth, and allows the characters to feel like they have more control over the story. Because say you instill your backstory with this one rival, it's like, well, there's this wizard that killed my family, and I want to, like, my whole like character goal is to try to search out and find revenge. So I'll instill that into my story and make the wizard one of the bad guys that you have to fight at like certain point in the story, whether it's session 5 or session 55. Like these things can go on for years. The game that I've been running for Maddie and her brothers has gone since the spring of 2020, and we hit like session 43, I think, this last week.
Man, and see, that's one of the points that I kind of make, is like, it's one of the similarities is how you have sessions, and you can go on for years. It's just like people in a league together, they can go on for years in that same league. So that's one of the similarities that we have. Yeah.
And so, one of the other analogies is like, when it comes to decision making, the characters have pretty much all autonomy within that. But it all comes down to the actual dice rolls to see if they're successful. So you can be the best team like manager, and like putting do all the research, like, okay, well, Julio Jones does really well against this specific defense, and I'm going to put him in this scenario. And then maybe Julio has a bad game. The dice roll just ends up not being right. It's like, well, you did all the support, you did everything you could. But it's just, it comes down to chance, not necessarily chance within fantasy football, because somebody's actually doing the work. But, that's kind of like the analogy that you can kind of continue it with.
Well, yeah, that's another similarity. Very good. Yeah, we're just kind of flowing here, man. It's perfect. Yeah, fitting together perfect. Yeah, that's another thing, is the chance. Is like, just like you say you play Julio Jones. Like one of the times that he was with Tennessee, he actually had a pretty decent game. But then another one, I mean, they could just target AJ Brown, or you have Nick Chubb playing. You could have, mediocre for Nick Chubb is still double digits, but you could have Kareem have a really good game in like a PPR stand for where he just catches a bunch of balls out of the backfield. I mean, it's all up to chance. Of course, somebody's actually doing the work, right? But you decide to play somebody over somebody else. I mean, you can either win or lose in that. I mean, it's a roll of the dice, really, figuratively and kind of literally. Yeah, especially with D&D. So in fantasy football, you draft a team of players. D&D, you create the characters. So however an argument can be made, and I typed all this stuff out, so forgive me if I sound robotic. However an argument can be made that each player drafted onto a fantasy team is like a different class of character in D&D. Okay. Like What characters would you think in Dungeons and Dragons represent each position in football, in your opinion? If you could really, like,
Yeah, no, I've done this before. Yeah, absolutely.
oh,
Yeah, no, I love this like little like game. So the way that I've described it before is like the quarterback of your team, you oftentimes has like the face of your franchise, right? Oftentimes you want a charismatic guy, somebody who can lead the team, somebody who is a master of what he does. And in my mind, in D&D, that's a paladin. A paladin is a fighter, somebody who wears a bunch of armor, who's like in the front lines, but he's also like the face. Like he needs a high charisma score because he's a spellcaster, and that's what he bases his magic on. Okay. And he oftentimes can like just be the face of the party who like introduces everybody. Somebody like a receiver, somebody who's like the fastest guy on the team, has hands for days, can be a monk because a monk can have like a lot of speed within D&D and has like ability to be able to catch different projectiles. So you can go on forever about these like little like kind of analogies, but I've done it before and it's super fun because I had this one time where we did like a draft where it's like I'm picking this class, this race class combination, and the other person chose this one. It's like you can really have some fun with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So then you have the choices, kind of like what we were discussing. Each week in fantasy, you have to make choices over which player you start due to things like matchups, time of game, etc. Choices in Dungeons and Dragons hold a much larger spectrum where to move, attack, who to talk to, all comes down to risk versus reward in both, really. So it's very similar in that, like the way that you decide, or I mean, I understand it comes down to the roll of the dice, but don't you have decisions that you can normally make in certain points of the game, just like you have decisions you can make in football?
Yeah, no, the way that I try to relate it to a wider audience is if you're playing something like Grand Theft Auto, you have these missions, but when you're not in a mission, you can do anything you want. You can drive around, you can talk to a specific character, you can, if you're feeling crazy, you can shoot that character with a gun or something like that. It's like, and have, it's GTA, it's crazy. Yeah. In D&D, you have that, but multiply it by 1 million. You can literally do whatever you want. You can cast a spell, you can do something that's within the mechanics of the game, or you can just say, I want to play this character a song and see if he likes the song, and maybe we can be friends. It's like, oh, okay, well, why don't you roll a performance check or something like that? So you have all these choices, and all these like wide world sandbox video games can like offer as many choices as they can, but they're still within a system. You can't say, if you're playing Skyrim, you can't decide that like, oh, I want to sing a song to this character and try to like become friends with it. It's like, well, you're kind of limited to like what you can actually do. In D&D, there's no limits, and it's just limits your own imagination, and then you try to, as best you can, relate it back to the mechanics of the game.
Nice. Okay, then you have outcomes. In fantasy, there are so many different outcomes that can happen. It's insane. It's crazy. Yeah. Just like we were talking before, you could play someone that you just got, you just have a hunch on, and it can hit for you, or it could completely bomb. It could be somebody that you draft. I'm a big believer in, you play your starters, but sometimes they can just have a bad game. They can get hurt in the middle of the game. Anything can happen. Like you've constantly got to strategize how you're going to work your team throughout the year. I believe solely that you don't win your league in your draft. It's the different moves that you make. Something I've read in D&D, you can plan a move, strategize, and make it happen, only for it to blow up in your face. Like it's anything. You can make any kind of move, and something so small can have a huge impact over the whole game. Like, is that about right?
No, absolutely. I mean, most decisions, unless you're talking about damage, most decisions are made within the roll of a D20, a 20-sided dice. Okay. And a 20 is the best option, is the best outcome you can have. A 1 is the worst outcome you can have. And if you're rolling something like, okay, well, you're trying to intimidate this big bad guy. If you roll a 20, he might just like back up into submission, and you can convince him to do whatever you want. If you roll a 1, the guy that the DM might have not been having you plan to fight because he's like way overpowered, he might end up fighting you and possibly killing the whole party. It's TPK. It kills the whole party. It kills the story. Nobody wants a TPK, but you want to also be able to give let your players know that like the possibility is there. If you guys don't play this right, there's a possibility your characters could all die. So, but at the same time, you also want to trust your DM. So like if you're outside of combat, if you're in the worst possibility, just like if you're in the, like, dead last in your league and like halfway through the season, you're like, oh, I'm really gonna have to turn things around, make a couple moves. You also got to like trust your DM if you're in a really bad scenario, that your character is being put in a situation that they'll be able to grow from and have like a really cool story afterwards. Because you never want, sometimes the tough thing about like playing with my family is that they'll get frustrated that their characters aren't doing everything that they would want them to be doing. Sure. And like be just as successful, or like this, everything's not as smooth as they want it to be. But at the same time, that's what good storytelling is conflict, and being able to overcome conflict to be able to feel that success. Right. So if you're dead last in your league halfway through the season, come out to win the championship, you're like, that's one that you'll remember for the rest of your life. The rest of your fantasy football career is like, I remember that year when I like pulled it out and from nothing. So
yeah, absolutely. And when you're talking about like family and friends that you're playing with and the different storylines and them getting frustrated, have you ever had anybody like really get pissed off at you not like making anything more out of their character yet, or them getting frustrated with you, or being like, dude, what is happening? Like, have you ever had anything like
usually
that?
The frustration comes out on the dice, because you can have all like the right moves that you can, but if I'm one of my teammates that I play with is Miles Garrett, and Miles, if he, there's a couple sessions where Miles was getting really frustrated at the dice roll. It's like, there's nothing I can do. It's just some bad luck. But yeah, he'll get like frustrated and like try to like, kill the next guy he sees as his character. It's just like, you can, they call it murder hobo as a D&D character. It's like, you start just like going crazy and just like killing the townspeople. It's like, well, hold on. They didn't do that. They didn't end up doing that, but it was, you always kind of got to rein it in when that starts to happen.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So let me ask, this is probably a question that a lot of people have. It's something that is there a winner to this game, or is it something that just continues and continues and continues?
There's not a winner in the idea that there's a competition.
Okay.
The corny way of saying is that you're winning by having fun. And it's corny, but it's true, because you're playing with family, you're playing with friends, yeah, and you're part of the same team. A lot of people consider it's like it's the party versus the DM. When the DM's adversarial, DM's not trying to be an adversary. He's voicing and playing as the enemies to your characters. But the overarching, no DM goes into the story thing like, I'm going to make these characters miserable by the end of the story and have this campaign be not fun. You want it to be fun because your character went through a lot of different challenges, and you want, the DM wants the character to feel powerful at the end. So the winner really is everybody being able to like grow from it, and being able to become closer and have these shared experiences that you'll remember for as long as you play D&D.
Okay, yeah, there's one of the differences.
That's definitely a difference.
D&D. Yeah. Yeah, everybody has fun whenever they're winning, and then when they lose, it sucks.
Yeah, a lot of bragging rights for sure. You remember.
Have you ever? Well, here's a question. So this is extremely, extremely interesting to me, man. I'm loving this. My wife is looking forward to watching this too, because she's kind of curious herself. So have you ever killed anybody off? Can you?
No, you definitely can. Because of, I don't know. I don't know if it's that I'm a little bit too cowardly as a DM that I don't put those kind of like hard steps in front of the characters that nobody's actually died from any of them yet, or if I just ease up too much. But I have had two characters that, two players who have had to wanted their characters to die for some reason, whether they needed to leave the campaign like temporarily or permanently, or they wanted to switch their character. They decided they wanted their character to go out feeling like a hero. So they wanted to sacrifice themselves. So that actually just happened this last week. One of our players had to take a break from D&D. So I decided like, well, do you want your character to leave for a while and come back and, rejoin the party at some point? Or do you want to have like a heroic sacrifice? So no, I want to have a heroic sacrifice. I want to feel like my character meant something to the party. So we decided that her character was going to die, and it's going to like affect the rest of the group now. But yeah, I haven't had a true character death in combat yet, and I'm a little bit nervous for that to happen, because I feel like it's going to be emotional, and I'm going to have some angry stares my way.
I can't wait. Whenever that happens, you got to tell me.
I will
talk about it, man. That's what you got to hear about.
Yeah.
Have you? So you get to make the stories, which seems like that would be just really fun to do. Have you made any crazy twists or anything like that? Like, say somebody, like you have somebody's backstory, their parents were kind of like the Batman thing, you know what I mean? Like his parents were killed and he's trying to avenge this person, but then you've got this character over here and you're like, he actually killed your parents. You were wrong. You thought it was this guy the whole time.
Yeah.
Like any kind of crazy twists?
I have a lot of twists planned.
Nice.
I don't want to, in case, my family ends up listening or watching this, I don't want to like reveal any of it.
No spoilers.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if I've had anything that's like super, super crazy. Actually, recently I did have one of my characters who had his father die, and he found out that he's a lot more like his father than he thought, but his father kind of like broke bad for a moment and wasn't like a good guy. So that was like a big surprise for that character, but I'm excited for even bigger ones in the future.
Man, this is like fascinating me. This will be a blast to like actually.
You got to join a game. It's like such an easy thing to just like, you have to find people that you don't always have to find people that because the group that I've been playing with, when I'm not DMing, I ended up finding on Reddit, on a subreddit that like was just like a local group that was looking for players, and I've been friends with them since 2018.
That's cool too. Yeah, the camaraderie that it can do as well. That's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you do like Zoom meetings with anybody, or are they all like in person?
You try to go in person when you can, but especially when the pandemic hit, everybody went online. There are companies like Roll20 that really took advantage of it, that allows for a virtual game board and for video chat. But a lot of people will like resort to Discord chat or Zoom chat to be able to go online to play their games.
Okay. I've got a guy I work with, and I told him that I was going to be interviewing you, and he's not a big football guy, but a huge D&D guy, huge.
Love it.
And now he's like, buddy, you got to come at least check this out.
You really
just
should
sit in and watch. So
I mean,
do that.
There are stories of there's a professional dungeon master, Brandon Lee Mulligan, who's a very popular guy. He works for College Humor. They have their own D&D show. It's been going for years. And he said that he realized that his style was actually conducive toward people watching it when he had a roommate who was not into D&D at all sit on the couch in the background of like one of the sessions. And hours later, when the session's over, he went up to him and said like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like, I need to know what happens. Like how does the rest of the story go?" He's like, "Well, I mean, it's going to happen over the course of several months." He said, "Well, you got to keep me updated with this, because it's like these stories are crazy." It's like, well, I mean, it's very conducive to an actual medium of watching a show. Like there's a Critical Role, which has made millions of dollars creating their own story because they're voice actors and they're great storytellers. So it's pretty cool of seeing like somebody who's really, really good at it be able to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking to the same guy I was telling you about. He told me about that, how they have like voice actors who do it's. I can't remember. There was another show. I think it was like something Machina. Yeah,
Vox Machina. Legend of Vox Machina is the animated version of their first campaign. Yeah, and it's on Amazon. Of Critical Role's first campaign, it's on Amazon Prime,
and it's awesome. I can admit, I wasn't a big anime guy, but man, I started watching it. It's hilarious.
It's great. It's really good.
It's fantastic, man. So you also something I'm big into art. Something that I saw you posted on IG, the dragon. And then as talking about it, telling you how dope I thought it was, you were telling me that you actually do these, you paint these figures for your campaigns.
I do. I decided, I'll show you. The first one that I actually painted was this little guy. It came in a paint set. Hopefully it shows up here. Nothing too crazy, just kind of like an easy little miniature to do to start off with. And then I decided to test my luck going way above and beyond, and then decided to do the white dragon. Oh gosh,
man. Oh, you just put it right in front of your faces.
Yeah, so you can see the white dragon here. That's the next thing I painted. I'm really proud of it. So I've done a lot of different things. I've done some like elementals, like I get some like grass little things to be able to do this first elemental. And then the most recent, the dragon, without showing you every single thing I painted.
Dude, I can sit here for a while, man.
Yeah, the red dragon was the most recent one I've done, and I posted it to Twitter and on Instagram because I was really proud of how it looked.
Yeah, you should be, man. That's fantastic. Did you do all the shading and everything too? I mean, what does that start off like? Is it just gray or white or?
So most of them start off as all gray. That one started off as all red. So it saved a little bit of work of having to base it out in red. Because you kind of sometimes, if it's not in the right color that you want it to be, or if it's just all in gray, you have to base it the color that you want it to start and then work out from there. But that one started as red. That was a Steamforged miniature that Steamforged sent me.
Man, that's awesome.
Getting to be in the more of these, like the D&D space, has allowed me to be able to have some really cool gifts from, these companies that are very, very happy to be able to make, relationships with.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's really cool, man. I love it. Well, Johnny, man, I mean, that's pretty much all I got for you, bud. This was a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was super fun. I'll take any opportunity to talk about D&D.
It's my pleasure. Oh, we definitely will. I want to figure out a way to keep in touch with you about your campaigns and your stories and things that are going on, man, and like kind of make posts about it, because this is fascinating. I wish there was a way that I could watch one of yours.
There might be something in the future that will down the line, I might try something like that. But as of right now, it's just our home games. Yeah, man.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know, because I would definitely be able to watch. I've heard. There's some on Twitch, aren't there?
Yeah. So Critical Role, like the biggest one, does it on Twitch. Dimension 20 does it on College Humor's streaming service Dropout. But a lot of people do it on Twitch. That's for sure. So it's and there's millions of podcasts. There are some very popular ones. The Adventure Zone is one of the first ones that I got into. The McElroy brothers, their first campaign, Balance, was a great 69 episode podcast series that is just one of the best storylines like that I've ever read, watched, read, whatever. Like, it's just really good.
That's awesome. I'll definitely check that out, man. And Katie Stanton is on iTunes, Spotify.
Yep. Anywhere you listen to music, Katie's got her music up there. She's got about 6 singles, I think 5 or 6 singles, and hopefully more to come.
Fantastic. Everybody go out there, look up Katie Stanton, stream.
Katie. Yeah.
Okay, say it again.
Katie.
Katie Stanton. I'll see if I can, I'll get a link and everything and put it down below in the description and all that stuff as well for sure. Absolutely, man. Johnny, this was fantastic, man. This was a blast.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Jay.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for coming on, and I can't wait to get you back on, bud, because this was, I can tell you what I always can tell whenever I do an interview that I really get into, I'll have like questions and I'll just set them over to the side and just keep talking. This was fascinating.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.